Hey everybody, Barry here again. I'm gonna get at the steering system today. I ordered in some longer tie rods where I moved the rack ahead about 8 inches. My tie rods are tipped back, so I had to order longer tie rods. And I have those here. Now these are not the final product, I don't think. Maybe, but I just ordered longer tie rods to see how they'd go. And they're threaded in about 1 inch and a bit. You can't really see it there, but... So these are longer. About 2.5-ish inches, maybe 3 inches longer. Also, this stud here is shorter. Now, from the stud up to the knuckle here is about the same length, but the stud here is shorter. So if I can't get a full nut distance on here, I won't use these because I want to be safe. So let's bolt the rack in and see what we got to work with. Before I start, I should mention that I'm just kind of pedaling around this week during the weekdays because I only get a couple hours a day to work on stuff and kind of move the van ahead and back up on ramp, that kind of thing. But this weekend, I'm going to put the rear diff in. I wanted to save that for a weekend because I got a couple good solid days where I can work on this uninterrupted, not having to move the van around. And it's going to be a bit of a process because I got another 9-inch that I'm got a ladder bar system on, and I'm going to use it on this. So I got to cut the brackets off of that, make the ladder bars work, make up mounts on the frame, beef up the frame really good, and then get the panhard bar to work. So this is going to be a real big one this weekend coming up. Can't wait. You'll have to bear with me because it's extremely tight down here. I wanted to do this with the suspension on the ground. And we have here, the stud goes up through and it immediately brings up solid because the taper here is a lot bigger than the taper on our original tie rod. You can see here that it's quite a bit bigger, which obviously this one's not going to work. Also, one big problem is it's far too long. It's like 2 inches too long to be able to get any adjustment at all. I'm not worried about the angle going back. That's not a major deal, but obviously being too long is. So let's check out the original tie rod and see how too short it is. Actually, it's got like 1 inch of thread engagement. Now, this may still be too short, or it may be long enough, because I have the rack sort of eyeball measured off this hole in the control arm to make sure that they're even on both sides, you know, so it's only close there. And the wheel is actually turned a little bit, so our bracket back here in the knuckle will actually be closer to the inner tie rod. So the original tie rods might actually be fine. When it was up on the ramp and suspension was completely maxed out, it would kick the tire in because of course everything dropped and the distance got shorter between here, so it kicked it in. But man, this might be easier than I thought. It's always good to be able to save a little bit of money on a project, and to not have to buy $80 worth of tie rods is definitely a bonus. Frees up money for more Go Fast parts. Now that I know that'll work really well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get my oil pan stuff figured out. That includes drain for the turbo, and what else? Oil cooler lines, or at least feed for the turbo, and the oil filter lines. And I had to swap over this mass destruction to the aluminum 5.3. Basically, just unbolt this, pull the oil pan off of that one. Now, I didn't measure anything down here because I like to live life on the edge. But I'm pretty sure when I unbolt the bolts in the oil pan, which you know I only got a couple in there, pretty sure when I take this rack out that I can tip the oil pan down and pull it right off. Then I can bolt my sump on up here, bolt on the windage tray, stick this back up there. As for a drain for the turbo, where am I going to put that, I wonder? I'm pretty sure the turbo is going over on this side. So I'll probably put the drain, I don't know, back here somewhere, or maybe off right here, somewhere away from the sump. It's still gonna be tight, whatever it is. Well, we can see here that the drain, or sorry, the pickup tube immediately goes back and up. So my oil pan comes up straight. So it doesn't matter if I put my drain right here, because it's just going to feed oil directly out over the top of this one. I think that'll work perfectly fine. And then really, I got lots of room here. Like, I got like 4 or 5 inches here where I can have my drain come out and go up. That was kind of dark. I apologize for that. And have my drain go up through the belt here and then up to the turbo, wherever it wants to go. A tight spot. Engineering. It's not bad. Van not jacked up. I just took the rack out and pulled the oil pan completely out from under it. So I doubt it'll do that with all the extra weight on it when the turbo's on, the coolant and all that stuff in the radiator, intercooler. Should probably drop 2 inches, but pretty cool anyway. Well, this thing is out. A little bit of oil dripped down from inside the engine, and it's dry. Mint. I'm gonna have a look at the sump. Maybe bring my spare engine over that I use for a mock-up and make my oil drain. On a side note, look at how much rust has already started to form inside of this thing. This is what Newfoundland does to vehicles every day. That's been there like less than a week, and we're indoors at a constant temperature. How does anything survive here? Just sizing everything up here. So I laid the oil pan in place, laid on the alternator bracket. Well, it was an AC bracket, but now it's an alternator bracket, and just hammered this one out as far as I could. It's going to go in about a ½ an inch more. I think the plan, where the belt rides right across here, is to have it come out of right here and just sneak right by this bracket in between this one and this one and go behind where the belt would sit anyway. Just come out and go straight up, but sort of on like a 45-degree angle, hopefully. Now, I'm not an advocate for, budget builds and doing it as cheap as possible, but man, this is a big project and I only got limited money to spend on it. So I'm gonna cut costs where I can. And this is going to work just as well as a $25 aluminum AN weld-on bung that just looks pretty. It's just got to drain oil. That's it. Just one way to look at it. I got a van moved back, so I guess I don't really need to use my mock-up engine to mock it up. I got all this space. Hold the oil pan on, see what I got. I'm just going to put a couple bolts in this oil pan. There's so much room under here. I just looked and I found my other piece of drain that I had. So I don't need to cut this one up at all. I'll just cut off the 45, which I'm pretty sure that one is, out of this one. Then I can use that. It'll work. So what I'm looking at is, I've got a mark put here already. So if I put it in that far where the mark is, should be able to pretty much sneak past the belt here. Got about 2 inches of room. Be able to come past this. And it will be on a bit of a different angle because my oil pan is tilted over this way on the end. Right here is a different angle. But I'm going to cut this off and see where it goes. Let's try it out. There we go, that's not too bad. Got about a 1/4 inch or so between this bracket here. Pretty much the same, probably a little bit more between the pulley a half inch or so. Nothing there is ever going to move anyway. And I can cut it shorter if I need to get room for the hose by this belt here. Maybe I can cut off another piece and have it angle back. Now I'll mark it to drill my hole. Once I drill the hole in it and get this piece put in, I can rotate it any way I want and then tack it. That's pretty much there. I drilled it and it's tight enough that it actually stays in place, and I got to kind of work to get it to rotate. So that's perfect. Also inside of here, it's just about perfectly flush, so I have no worries about hitting the pickup tube. I think I'm going to try it on the van now to see if I can get it tacked into place. I think this is going to work okay. Just get it pretty much where it needs to be. If it is stuck too far in through the oil pan, all I got to do is either flatten it out with a hammer while it's hot, or get the burr bit in there and shave it down a little bit. I think we're going to do fine here. Got enough room to get my finger in between here. Same here, lots of room. And there's lots of room for a hose to come and pass this belt, and obviously there's no room. It's not going to touch here. I'm going to go ahead and tack it, I think. Got it finish welded. Don't look too close at the welds. I mean those welds. Ugh. Anyway, it ain't gonna leak. I welded it inside and outside. It's on there. Ain't going nowhere. I think what I'm gonna do now is change over the windage tray and oil pickup tube. Well, it's all bolted on. Seems to fit well. You can see here that I cut the windage tray. It should be fine. We're gonna lose some of our windage tray at the back here, but not really a big deal. Pickup tube was good looking. I sprayed it out with some brake cleaner Mint. I'm gonna call Gander Store tomorrow, see if I can get the right fittings for this. The only ones we have in stock are 1/2-inch pipe tread by 1/2-inch barb. And 1/2-inch pipe tread is really, really big. It's not on it is about 1 inch. So I'd have to cut this out like a lot and then thread it. And to only have 3/16 of an inch of thread is kind of annoying for a nut that's so big. If I can get a steel one, then I'll screw it in so far and then weld it. And I think that would be a lot better. I want to go 1/2-inch hose because of course my oil filter ports are 1/2-inch hoses. I'll do the drain plug next video also, because at the moment I have the plug, which is 35299, made by Walker. Now this is an oxygen sensor plug. But what I'm going to do is use an oxygen sensor bung, and I'll get right here somewhere, whatever's the lowest point. Maybe it's back here, maybe it's here. Drill a hole, put the bung in there, weld it all the way around, and then use this as my drain plug. I did this on the rear end of the 9-inch because the 9-inch Ford doesn't have a drain plug. You just, every time you want to change the fluid, you gotta pull the whole cover off, which is stupid. So I did the same thing, welded an oxygen sensor bung up there, screwed the plug in and forgot about it. When I want to change my oil, just drain it. No fooling around. I didn't have to take the whole drive shaft out, the center section, side axles, all that junk. Just change fluid. And this is gonna work perfect here too. But that's for next video because I don't have the parts here right now. What I'm gonna do now is bolt the rack on and see if I can get some adjustment on my tie rods. Get it down on the ground and see if the OE tie rods are gonna work. I don't know if the oil pan is going to go up with the rack there, but I want to try it. All work. Not going to happen. Well, it was worth a shot. I've got the wheels set up as straight as I can get them. They kind of want to move around a little bit, but we're pretty well straight. So I'll get it on the ground and make sure. Also, I've got the rack perfectly centered. It's 2 1/4 inches from the end of the tie rod here to the edge of this hole. And the same over here. Obviously it's kind of dark. I'm gonna get it on the ground, straighten up the wheels as perfectly as I can, and then see if the tie rods will fit. Now I'm sure it's not absolutely perfect, but I do have the wheels lined up the best I can get. They look half straight. Doesn't look too bad for an eyeball test. Let's see if I can get those tie rods to line up at all. I just went and put the tie rod on and unscrewed it enough so that it went out into the knuckle, and I got about a 1/2 inch of tread engagement on my inner tie rod, which is not nearly enough. Then I went to do the other side, and look what I found. In order to get the tie rod up to the knuckle on this side, it goes just about out to the stock location where the jam nut was. So something's not right. Apparently the rack isn't center. And by not centered, I don't mean I measured incorrectly and the rack's gone this way or that way, because I put it in the stock location, just moved it ahead. Everything still lines up with the column up here, so I know this part is fine. But we can see right here that the boot is scrunched right up. And over here, the boot is fully extended. Or not quite fully, but almost. So I'm gonna have to turn this steering shaft all the way to the lock one way, all the way to the lock the other way, count the number of turns it makes, and then divide that by half. So if it's 3 full turns lock to lock, if I do a turn and a half, I know that's dead center on the rack. And then I'll see where my tie rods sit. I think I should pretty much have it now. I measured from the end of our tie rod here to the edge of this CV axle cup right here. And I got 3 inches on both sides. And this is the center of the knuckle, so even if the wheel is turned a little bit, this is still the center, so it shouldn't change any distance until you get around the arch if the strut were to move. So this should be center. And again, I have less tread used up on this side than I have on the passenger side. I think what I'm going to do to try and solve this is hook up the steering column up here to the rack and then set my steering wheel straight. Right now, I'm going to leave the rack in the same position that it is and hook up the steering column just to see how far an angle the steering wheel is off. Then I'll know if I'm just counting my amount of turns around. It's pretty tight down here. Okay, there's the steering shaft on, going up through the floor. I've got the wheel set perfectly straight. Let's see what we gotta do. Yeah, we're off a little bit, but not very much. That's pretty much it. After I got it centered up, I realized that the jam nuts on the left inner tie rod and the right inner tie rod are different distances apart. So that means with the steering wheel centered, the rack is offset by about 1/4 of an inch. And after I got that straightened out, then I screwed on the 2 tie rods. The left tie rod, the one that I was having concerns with, has 1 inch of thread engagement now. So that makes me feel a lot better. Now that's also with the tires with my little eyeball alignment thing, so obviously it's going to be off a little bit. Kind of hoping that it's going to be more of the tire kicked out on the back so that when they do the alignment, it'll pull in further. But it's only going to be probably half a turn anyway out. So that's a lot better. I'm going to pretty much do my backyard alignment thing here now, just eyeball it enough to, if I got to pull it out, I can turn the wheels rather than having both wheels just going wherever they want. Tie rods are bolted up solid, ball joints bolted up solid, steering column. I don't have the jam nuts done yet, but that's not going to affect me just pulling it in and out of the garage. It doesn't even start, so it's not like I'm going anywhere. Now I'd like to get it down on the ground and test the left and right steering just to make sure that it's all good. I haven't tried it yet. I figured you'd join me. Make sure I don't have any weight down on the... All right, no weight on the van. That's tight. No power steering. Oh, that's good. Well, we don't have any clunking or binding or anything. Lots of range for turning. I call it a success. I think I'm going to set up the camera so you can get an idea of the left and right sweep, and I'll get inside so I can actually do it rather than holding the camera and trying to turn the wheel and all that. But that looked really good and it felt really good. Nice. It was a little bit jittery because it's kind of hard with no power steering and that big old engine out in front of it. So we're pretty much all finished up for tonight. I got the turbo drain done, sized up a plan for the drain plug. Steering system is pretty much not complete, but I got a real good idea of what's going to happen. And right now it functions, so that's pretty cool. I just took a second to line up the Sawzall on the hood just to mess with Cass. took a screenshot, put it on my Facebook group. It was like, hey, I'm cutting a hole in the hood. So, gotcha. Anyway, all finished up for tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good night.